Hey everybody, good to see you again. This is for the exclusive membership of Insights to Freedom. I hope you guys have had a great week, and I look forward to what we're going to go through today and what we're going to go through the entire month. So, first question I have for you is, were you able to go on the link that my team sent to you to buy the book that we talked about last week and get that ordered? I'm going to show it to you again. It's called Heads I Win and Tails You Lose. It's by my friend Patrick Donahue from Salt Lake City. And not only excellent reading, but very specific to developing a pattern in your life that's going to bring you long-term success financially through the infinite banking system and other things. So go on the link that was sent to you by Rose last week and get that book ordered. And as we go through the month, I'm going to show you a block system or a blocking system that hopefully you'll be able to implement in your own life and have more time, or a block that you set aside for study, for reading, for pursuing something new, or just sitting quiet and listening. I mean, whatever you want that block to be. But what I do know is that oftentimes we get busy with all these other things and we don't do the very things that we want to do. So in relation to blocking for this month, I just want to go over our list again real quick and let you know that today we're going to be talking about patterns in our lives that that are going to be important to break through and understand, so that we can begin to say, if I don't take care of this pattern, it's not likely I'm going to be able to set goals or to attain goals that are important for me. Now, again, this is not just financial. It could be something like, I want to start working out more. I know that that's important. Or maybe it's, how can I get away to see my grandkids more often? Or possibly, I just want to have the time to sit and read. Or, you fill in the blank, whatever is important to you. Remember, this is about insights to freedom. And freedom in people's lives come in many different shapes and sizes, many different interests. And so I want to make sure that you understand that going through these patterns is just a way to say, hey, I need to break through these things. These patterns that I have are holding me back from a specific goal or a freedom that I may want in my life. Now, next week, a week from today, we're going to do something. We're going to get into more of how to write down the tasks. What are those tasks that I could put into a block system that ultimately, if I stick with that block system and those tasks, it's going to give me more of what I really think that I want. Okay, so for me, I wrote down, if I stay on task and I get those things done, then that's going to give me more quality family time instead of working later or feeling like I'm behind all the time and I can't take the time or spend the time or money on pursuing things that are important to me because, I'm not taking care of my time very well. Okay. The week after that, we're going to go into productivity. How do we measure our productivity? Okay. And then we're going to relate that to blocking in our lives and how we're doing with that block system. And finally, on the 25th, we're going to talk specifically about distractions, although I'll mention those throughout the month. But literally what we can do with those distractions to not limit the distractions, but actually put them in their proper place within the blocking system, so that things are still getting done, and the people that are trying to get a hold of you, even though it may seem like a distraction, you try to keep them in the loop, and that they know that they're important to you, and what they need you to do is important, but it fits within your block system and not just theirs. Okay. So what I did today with the patterns, and if you could look behind me, what you would see is I wrote out a long list, and I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. It doesn't have to be long. It just is trying to deal with your patterns, okay? So, for instance, to really understand what may be holding you back is to write down certain behaviors that you might have or patterns of behavior that you have that are holding you back from the things that are really important to you, okay? Some of the things that I wrote down are personal to me, and I'll claim those things as we go through it. Some of the things that I wrote down are more specific to people that I'm around, or personalities that I see, or people in business that I'm with, or maybe even church or family or whatever. These are just different patterns that I wrote down. Now, there are many, many others, and the goal here is not for me to fill in your blank. It's more that you write down a list too of different patterns that you recognize not only in other people, but specifically your own patterns that may be limiting you to the successes or the freedoms that you want in your own life, okay? So I'm going to start real quick. And the top one that I wrote down is procrastination, okay? Now, I'm not a huge procrastinator myself. I mean, it's not that I don't struggle with it at all, but I'm pretty good about setting goals and going after certain things and not really just not doing something, okay? I have been around a lot of different procrastinators, and oftentimes they get extremely frustrated with themselves because they just don't feel like they can get anything done. And a lot of times that pattern is holding them back from certain successes. Now, when I go into these patterns, I'm not saying all procrastinators are bad people or anything like that. I'm just saying to recognize that is one of your patterns is going to be important as we move forward in the block system, because I do believe that even procrastinators, if they would begin the block system that I teach, they're going to find some successes there. And it's going to encourage them to go to the next step and actually begin to work through some of their procrastination patterns of behavior. Now, what we're talking about here really is a behavioral thing, the behavior that develops into patterns in our lives. And a teaching that I look forward to doing coming up is really psychology. I mean, it's about human behavior. Much of what Nelson Nash taught in Becoming Your Own Banker with Insights to Infinite Banking concept is about human behavior. What holds us back from being able to succeed with infinite banking? Okay, I'm going to just broaden that and say really success in life in general is recognizing the patterns or beliefs that we may have, behaviors that come out of those beliefs. And I'm convinced at this stage of my life that people are always going to do what they believe. Okay, we may say something different. We may actually tell ourselves or other people what they want to hear or what we want to believe, but typically speaking, we're always going to do what we believe. Okay, and until we recognize those behaviors and say, you know what, I need to change what I believe about this behavior. Let me give you an example. Okay, so there's many people in business that would say, well, you know what, I don't have the brains to really lead a company, or, you know, I'm not smart enough to do something. And that's what they believe, and their action is always going to come out of what they believe, and they will be an average worker in that situation. Now we may be able to go back and recognize where that pattern started. Maybe they were told as a child, you know, yeah, you're not really smart enough to, you know, run these businesses. You're really just not very smart. And those things stick on people, and all of a sudden that behavior or that belief that they have becomes a behavior and a pattern. What we're trying to do here is just recognize what those patterns are, and then we're going to delve into different ways to maybe change our belief to be able to change the way we think of ourselves in these patterns. Okay, so procrastination is one that I wrote down. The next one is allowing other people to interfere with our days. That would be me. I would say that is pretty consistent with a lot of business people that I know. Now you may have a job where you go to work and you work for somebody else from say 9 to 5 o'clock, and you basically have a very specific task, and you're under the authority of a boss or somebody that's telling you what to do, and you're like, well, where does that fit in with me? The reality is we all have time outside of that 9 to 5 job. Maybe you're an entrepreneur and that's a different set of circumstances, but the reality is that people are always trying to interfere with what we want to have in our lives that we would consider freedom. Okay, so allowing other people to interfere with our days. This block system that I discovered years ago was in relation to that particular thing. Like, I can be busy all day long. I can check off a lot of things off of a list. And at the end of the day, I realized that most of what I was checking off were important things to other people. And so they would send me a text, they would send me an email, they would call me on the phone and interrupt the things that were very important to me in that day. And all of a sudden I would assume, okay, it's my job to kind of help them through these other things. And a lot of my day was going to the other people that felt okay about interfering into my day. Now, that doesn't make them bad people. These things happen in business. But what we're trying to shift here is I'm going to develop a block where my important things are going to be in that block. And if somebody tries to interfere into that text, email, phone call, whatever, unless it's a total emergency, it is not more important than my important things. It still may be important, and I may communicate back with that person. Some of you may have a secretary or somebody that works for you, and that's a better scenario where this person would actually contact that person and say, hey, Jim's schedule is going to allow you guys to discuss this at 4 o'clock today. And if today doesn't work, then it will be tomorrow at 4 o'clock. And you continue to try to make the people understand what they want to do is very valuable and it's important, but it's got to fit into your particular schedule. Okay, does that make sense? And we're gonna go through that a little bit more. How about making a big list at the beginning of the day? Here's another pattern. And I mean, I've seen hilarious lists like, brush my teeth and comb my hair and put on my clothes. And these lists can get pretty extensive. And, I think a lot of it is just you feel better when you check certain things off. But if you have a check-off list, and at the end of the day, you've checked off all these things, but the highest priority, the most important things get pushed back to the next day. And the next day, they get pushed back to the next day. And it's easy to get into a pattern where you say, man, I'm getting so much done. Look at all I'm accomplishing, but you're not getting done the most important things, okay? Eventually, that leads to a lot of stress, and you get behind on a lot of things because you're just procrastinating to get to the main things. Here's another one. Many of us don't see a bigger picture, so we just concentrate on the very thing that is before us. Now, that doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but oftentimes people that look that way, they get down the road 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, for some of us many more years, and you sit there and say, oh my goodness, I should have been doing this 20 years ago, and I just kept putting it off. And all of a sudden this big picture becomes a little more apparent, and I failed to see it way back there. Okay, hopefully the block system is going to help with that too. I'm going to go through the rest of the list pretty quick. I don't want to go too long here, but settling for average instead of going for great, I would say that's pretty easy to do for some people. is that their pattern is that they just end up being average, and that's okay. How about you write down way too many things on your list? Like, you're not very realistic about your list, and you basically roll out a scroll and there's 100 things on it for that particular day, and all of a sudden it's so overwhelming what you've written down that you don't really do any of it at all. Okay. How about not good enough to get better? That's a belief system that some people have. It develops into a pattern, and all of a sudden you begin to not believe in yourself, and you say, I don't know, I just don't have what it takes to get to that next level. Okay. How about you don't have time? Almost everybody I talk to has a pattern to say, oh, we're so busy. We're just so busy. I don't have time to take on anything more. For some people, that's true. But for many people, we're busy with a lot of things that are really not that important, and they take a lot of time. So hopefully this block system is going to allow you to get better at saying, you know what? I'm going to get all these things done in this block of time. And then, yeah, I have time to meet you for coffee or talk on the phone or, go play golf, whatever it is. How about I already work too much? I can't take on anything else. So, if this block system is going to take a bunch more time, I already work way too much. The goal of the block system is not more work. It is less work, but the work that you do is more focused, and you get way more done in a shorter period of time. Okay, that's what the goal is here. How about no accountability? Okay, that's a big one, and it's hard for people to recognize, but one of the goals in this community here is that we develop some accountability. And if you sit there and say, oh man, I need somebody to call me out on this and check in on me and make sure that I'm doing whatever it is that's important to you, as a community, that's where we can step in and say, hey, you can do it. I'm going to call on you. I'm going to send you a text or an email or whatever. And when you have accountability, the statistics are you always get more done. That's the way it is, because you don't want to let the community down, is what it is. Okay, another one that's a big one is you're never satisfied. Okay, so one of the things that I had to learn in business was a different pattern, and that was to say you celebrate every win. Got a good friend in Arizona that we kind of did that together, and it was just like, hey, it didn't matter if it was little wins or big wins. You always tried to celebrate whatever win came along, and that pattern began to change in me to where it was, you know what, I feel good satisfaction with that victory that I just had. Maybe it was a victory of getting everything done in way less time than what I used to get it done, and it was very efficient. I'm going to celebrate that win. Okay, how about this? I can't establish goals. That was always a struggle for me in years past, where I would establish goals. Like, if I was wanting to make a certain amount of money every year, I'd sit there and say, it'd be great to make that much, but, I'm limited. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. And so establishing goals can help us break some of these patterns too. Not that it runs you if you don't reach those goals, but without a goal, you're always going to succeed. Whatever happens, you are going to be okay. But you don't want to feel bad, and maybe that was my thing, is I didn't want to feel bad about not accomplishing something, and so it was easier just not to have that goal. Another one would be perfectionism, and the perfectionist oftentimes is never really satisfied with what they're doing or what they're accomplishing. They're always going to notice the things that are not perfect or not great, and oftentimes they just don't finish something because it's just not good enough. Okay, the reality is all these different patterns can be part of our personality, but the reality is that we can break through those patterns of behavior and begin to overcome and find successes in ways that we didn't think were possible. Okay, so these patterns that I'm talking about here, I think that really it needs to be tied in with some kind of goal. Like, I don't want to just teach you a new system of blocking in the weeks ahead and what I do just for information. I want it to be so that you have some attainable goals, and as you begin to use this system, you see patterns of behavior in your life begin to change. That's the main thing. And all of a sudden, you start to see, hey, there's different insights, there's a different way to look at things that can bring certain freedoms in our lives over a period of time. That's really what this is all about, okay? So really the goal here that I want you to also write down, as you're writing down different patterns that you see in your own life, or maybe different patterns that your friends have or people that you work with, and recognize that we all have patterns. It's not I'm right and they're wrong, or they're right and I'm wrong. It is people have different patterns. And then begin to establish who is having success. Who are the people that are developing patterns that I want to mimic? Because they would have insights for me to gain knowledge from, gain insight from, and all of a sudden try to break our patterns of behavior. That's what I've done throughout our lives. Like, what's holding me back? What do I not understand? Help me seek truth and be around people that have found success in that. Okay, that's what I want you to do. So this week, I want you to write down different patterns for yourself and understand, and maybe you write this at the top, that's what I did, is that my goal is to understand patterns that I may have in my own life that are holding me back from specific goals. Okay, so then I want you to spend a little bit of time writing down what you believe are some of your goals. And I don't want to say some are good and some are bad. Goals are different for different people. Okay, and I could give you all kinds of examples of this. It could be, I want to eat better. How do I begin to eat better? What is behind the foods that I eat? What makes it good or bad or indifferent? And I need to have time to study some of those things, or introduce the block system to give you more time. Or maybe the goal is, hey, I want to increase our income $10,000 in the next 12 months. What can I do? And you set aside a block to begin researching certain things that you really enjoy doing and how you could make money from that. Maybe it's hiking or biking or exercise or kayaking or, whatever. It doesn't matter. There's all these different goals to people. And then once we establish that, like, here's patterns holding me back, here's some goals that I really have always wanted to go after, but these beliefs are holding me back there. Now we're going to get ready to go into the next session. The next session is actually going to be writing out certain things on the block system. I'm going to show you exactly what I do with my own block system. It's going to be a little bit different for you, but it's going to establish a different pattern that you can implement in your own life. And over a period of time, as you continue to implement this block system, I personally believe that you're going to find a lot of success and new freedom to have the time available to do the things that you really are looking forward to doing. And so I hope that that's helpful for you. So next week, we're going to actually focus on the tasks that I have in my life and how I come up with my own block system. And then really what I'm going to ask you to do is begin to go through your own block system too and write it out. Put it down on a piece of paper. If you're good with a computer, put it in your computer. And I want you to send it to me this week as you write down patterns and then you write down goals and things like this. One of the things that we want to do is we want to have other people on the group be able to look at the other people and learn from them. So write down your patterns, things that are holding you back, maybe beliefs that you may have that are definitely related to holding you back from attaining different freedoms and goals in your life. And let's get it to the people in the group. Okay, and if you know other people, I can't state this enough, if you know other people that would be excellent to be part of our group and this is resonating with you about a friend or a family member or something like that, introduce them to Insights to Freedom Tell them to go through and, you'll pay for the first few months for them, whatever, just so that they can become part of this community. Okay, because I do believe that the more people that see this, the more people are going to find freedom in their life and from some patterns that are holding them back in their life. Okay, insightstofreedom.com. Send them there. Okay, hey, great to see you. I hope you have a good week. You're going to get an email on Monday talking about the next session next Thursday, and do your homework. Okay, let's start going down that road. But great to see you. Hey, go on to insightstoffreedom.com, send me a message, let me know how the Facebook Live went for you, and certain things that I can be dealing with you specifically. With your membership, you also get to do a Zoom each month. We'll set up a Zoom. If you have some things that you want to talk about, get a hold of me, set up a Zoom, and we'll get that on the calendar. Okay? Great to see you. Have a great week.